Hello and a very warm welcome to all my graceful audience. This is Rahmat Empowerment Wala presenting you your favorite podcast, Empowering Minds. The concept behind Empowering Minds is to call upon such prestigious guests who haven't just explored their own mind power, but are trying to empower others' minds too. So, to serve the purpose, we have with us Roark Janis tonight. So Roark is from Salt Lake City, Utah, United States, but currently spending his time in Karachi, Pakistan for business purposes. Right now, he's live. He is connected live with us from Dubai, and he's a software product owner. He is an e-commerce and fulfillment expert, a Bitcoin maximalist, and a travel enthusiast. So I'm really thankful. I'm highly thankful to Roark Janis to that he has given his precious time to us tonight. So let's move towards Roark and get to know more about him. So welcome, Roark Janis and Empowering Minds. Thank you so much that you have given us your precious time.
Thank you, Rehan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Roark, I've introduced you a little bit, a briefly introduction of yours. So I request you if you want to add something into it.
Sure. I'm happy to tell a little bit of my background. I probably don't look it, but I'm 63 years old, and I have 7 children, all adults, and 5 are married, and I have 9 grandchildren, who I love and adore, and they are spread out all over the United States. So that's part of my travel enthusiasm, is to go and visit with the family. Um, my passion has been in entrepreneurial activities. Most of my career, I worked for other companies, helping them be entrepreneurial and build the businesses, particularly in e-commerce and fulfillment and supply chain. Um, and then that kind of migrated into software about 15 years ago. And so I started to focus on building products, software solutions in the supply chain industry. Partnered up with some guys here in Karachi, and found Pakistan to be an awesome place to develop software. Some very skilled individuals here, coming from the universities. We have a great intern program, and we love to hire the best of the best coming out of the university. And so now my focus is on building a variety of products, not just in the supply chain and e-commerce fulfillment industry, but we have products we're doing, for example, a pickleball resort. And pickleball is like paddle in Karachi, but most other places in the world, they're playing pickleball. And so we've written software that manages the courts. We're doing software for transportation and warehousing. We're working on software to do Bitcoin accounting. Maybe we'll talk about Bitcoin more later, but I'm very much into Bitcoin. And so that's kind of me. And like you said, I'm spending a lot of my time in Pakistan, closer to the software team, and that's been an exciting adventure to, move most of my time to be in Pakistan and get to know the people and the community.
Wonderful, Rory. Interesting to know that. Interesting life journey. And I think we could learn so much more from you in the next 30 minutes. So, Rory, you said you have been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years or so. So, I would love to know that me and at Rehan School system, we are trying to develop a system where we can develop entrepreneurs. So, what qualities, according to you, should one possess in order to be a good entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think there's two main things that I focus on. One is looking for problems that exist and then trying to figure out how to solve them in new and creative ways. And to do that in conjunction with networking with other people, because most of the time when I have a good idea, very next thing that comes for how to solve that problem with that idea is, who do I know that does parts of that I can bring together to solve that problem? Because most of the time I can't solve it myself, but often I have met somebody who has some skill or some experience or some software they've developed or some product that they've created, or capability they have that would contribute to solving the problem. And so I just love to do that, and I think I'm good at it. It's weird because it comes naturally to me, even though I'm a very introverted person. I do find energy, like I don't find energy in a social situation like a party, but I do meeting people, just like meeting you and doing this interview, and meeting other people. It's like a connection of a network, right? So my advice to somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur is just start to meet people, make connections, see what you can do to help them, and then look around the world in everything you do and see what problem you can solve, and then see if you can't use your network to come up with some solution. And the more you do that, and the more you build experience and resources, the more capable you are to solve those problems. It takes time and effort.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much for that wonderful answer, Roark. It really brightens our mind. So, as we know, you are spending your time lately in Pakistan, in Karachi. So, what made you travel to Pakistan?
Well, it's interesting. So earlier this year, well, I've been traveling to Pakistan for about 8 years now, coming several different times to meet with my partners here and the team over the years. But I didn't spend a lot of time here. I'd come for a week or two, and then it'd be a year or two, right? So for me, I went through a very difficult divorce last year that was unexpected. Ended up kind of being alone with my kids all grown. And so I needed to figure out, what did I want to do? Where did I want to go? And I started to think that maybe I would want to live in another country, or spend a lot of time at least in another country. And so I made a list of countries. I speak Spanish fluently. From my
Wow,
youth, I lived in South America and served a mission for my church. And so from that, I'm fluent in Spanish. And so naturally, I thought of Latin American countries. Um, but I was talking one day to my partner here in Karachi on a Zoom call, and I was telling him I was thinking about this place and that place. He says, "Why don't you come to Karachi?" And I had not thought of it for some reason. I don't know why. But as soon as he said it, like this feeling just came, well, that's where I need to go and spend more time. And so I started to make the arrangements. It took about 3 months, get the visa and make the arrangements to be able to come. But I did that. And so I came in late November, was my first time coming in. And I've been in and out a number of times since, including I went home to the U.S. for the New Year's holiday. But I don't know. I'm adventurous, and so moving to Karachi as an American is adventurous. I don't speak Urdu, but I'm trying to learn. Um, I have patient people that are teaching me that know English well, and so I'm learning some words every day and trying to master that. But it's been an adventure, and it was a place I felt I needed to come. But I don't know all the reasons yet. I found some reasons since I've been here, people I can serve and help and make a difference. So
Pakistanis are famous for their hospitality nature. I hope you have found some.
I have. They've been wonderful, and I couldn't say enough positive things about Pakistanis. I really have found them to just be a warm, friendly, kind, generous people.
That's good. And how's your experience? How have been your experience there?
In Pakistan,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been good overall. I'm learning that things work in different ways sometimes. They don't work as fast as I'd like. um, and
okay.
people aren't always, if they're going to come at 10 o'clock, they maybe come at 10:30 or 11 or even the next day and things like that. But it's okay. It's every culture is a little different. But
Yeah,
so I'm just adapting. I think I'm also, the other thing that's been interesting is when I go to the grocery store or the supermarket to buy food, the brands are all different. So it takes me, 2 hours to go shopping because I have to read every brand and try to figure out what brand of milk I want to buy, or just, and the cuts of meat are different, just like all the different aspects. So but I find that enjoyable. It's like learning. I love to learn. And so I think maybe I would just summarize it by saying that everything is learning, even how to drive here. Obviously you guys drive on the left side of the road, which is the
Yeah.
opposite of us. And I've done that before in the UK and places, but you also don't always respect the lines or the lanes, and everybody kind of goes everywhere. So I'm learning, but it's fun. It's all about
So you
learning
don't
and
need to
experience.
learn that thing from us. You don't need to learn that thing from us.
I don't need to drive that way. I need to drive more, more straight.
Yeah. The way you learned till your childhood. So you need to
Okay.
adhere to that. At least
Yes.
someone do that.
Yes. And I'm not used to honking the horn all the time either.
That would be good.
So,
That
but I
would be
love it. I love being in a culture and a different culture and community. And obviously, I'm a minority here, and people stare at me sometimes because I don't look like a Pakistani. Although I've heard there's I think Gora is the word for white, if I've learned it correctly. And there's Gora
yes.
people in the north of Pakistan. I met one at a conference in Abu Dhabi recently. But obviously I'm different. But I kind of love to immerse myself in the culture, and I try not to live the expat life of just being in a compound all the time. And I want to be with the people, and as much as possible.
I think you wear shalwar kameez and some cap, national cap of Pakistan, like Jinnah cap or Gilgiti cap. I think you would look Pakistani. It won't look any
Okay,
different.
that's a good idea. I have caps I like. Like I have this cap that I wear sometime that's a Bitcoin cap, but I will look for a Pakistani cap. That's a good idea.
Like there are Jinnah cap and Gilgit cap, so it protects
And
you.
Jinnah,
It
that's he's like the founder, kind of the George
founder of
Washington, if you will, of Pakistan, right? I think
yes,
I think his do they celebrate his birthday on December 25th? Am I remembering right?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Because I
You can
have I
find his
have the
picture
Pakistan
on the
holidays now
Pakistan
on my
currency
Google calendar.
notes.
Okay. All right. I'll look for that. I'll ask my partner and see where I can find a cap. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, talking about Karachi, and we do not talk about food, that would be injustices. So, how do you like food here in Karachi, Pakistan?
So I mostly like the food. In fact, one of the reasons I've always liked Pakistan over India, nothing against the Indians, they're wonderful. I love Indian food, but I love to eat beef. And so I'm grateful that you eat beef in Pakistan. So I love kebabs. I love biryani. The only thing that's hard for me is I don't like a lot of spice. A little bit's okay. I like more of the flavor, but if it's too hot, it's hard for me. But I'm kind of getting used to it. I realize that I'm not as sensitive to it. The more I'm here and the more I eat, I'm kind of, not too spicy, but I notice that the spice isn't bothering me as much. I'm getting used to that, but I do love the food. Um, it's an enjoyable
I
part of
think you
being
will
here.
develop your palate very soon.
I think so. I'll have to
All the
because you guys
best with
like your
that.
food spicy.
Absolutely. Without spice,
Yeah,
I think there's no food.
yeah. That's what people tell me. Spice is
What's the reason behind eating boiled food?
that's true. I don't know. You need the spice of life in the food, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, coming towards another question, Rorik, you said you are a Bitcoin maximalist. So, I would love to know how did you find that passion towards Bitcoin?
Yeah. So, Bitcoin's been around 16 years. Actually, the birthday of Bitcoin is the 3rd of January each year. So it just turned 16 years old.
Wow.
And so I had heard of Bitcoin a few times in the past, but I didn't really know much about it other than it seemed like in the US, people had bought Bitcoin and then sold it and made a lot of money and bought Teslas. That's what my awareness was, is that they had made all this money, but it sounded to me like maybe a get rich quick scheme or something, right? And so I
Yeah,
didn't really pay attention to it, which I'm sad about because the earlier you get into Bitcoin, the better. And it's still not too late, even though Bitcoin is very valuable now. But in 2023, my brother, younger brother, gave me a Christmas gift of $100 gift card to buy Bitcoin, and and so I called him up and I told him thank you, I appreciated it, and I thought, well, this is a chance for me to learn a little bit about Bitcoin, right? And I've got this $100 he gave me, And so, and the way that worked is you would use the card to join an exchange, and that exchange would then give you $100 worth of Bitcoin. And that was kind of the start. So I called him up and I told him, hey, thank you for this gift, but like, what can you tell me about Bitcoin? And he said something to me that really got my attention. He said, Bitcoin is the best money ever discovered. And
Wow.
I was like, well, first of all, now that's a challenge because I have to prove that's true or disprove it, right? It can't just let that stand out there because that's a pretty bold statement. But the other thing that impressed me, the two things were he called it the best money. And I never thought of money as good, bad, best, better. Money's money. And he said it was discovered. And I don't think of money as being discovered. I think money is just, the government issues money and we have our money, right? I have my rupees here and that's just, we have them. And so that sent me down the rabbit hole of learning. And we're on the Empowering Minds podcast here, right? So it was about learning and empowering my mind around why is it the best money? What makes money money? Why do we have money in the first place? And what makes one kind of money better than another kind of money? And then how was Bitcoin discovered versus just created by somebody? Like, what does that mean to be discovered? And that's probably a longer explanation than we have time for, but the short
Yeah.
version of the discovery is that a guy named a person, we don't even know, it may be a group of people, but had a pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto, created the Bitcoin by discovering it by taking different pieces of cryptography and different concepts of digital cash that had been played with over the years. And this person put them all together into one system of checks and balances that is the perfect thing. Everybody acts in their own best interest of all the stakeholders in Bitcoin. And that ensures the security and the integrity of Bitcoin. And it would take a little while to explain all of that. But my conclusion after some months of studying this was that my brother's statement was true. And so once, I'm a very principled person. So once I understood the truth of what his statement was and what it meant, then I had to act according to those principles, which meant that I started to convert all of my savings and investments into Bitcoin in order to save in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was the best way to save and preserve the time and energy that I put in. Like you put in time and energy to do this podcast and to work with your students, right? And I assume you get paid for that in some way. And that time and energy is stored in money until you can use it to buy something else you need or want in the future. And so we want to store our money or our time and energy in the best store of value that we can. And, nothing against the rupee or Pakistan, but the rupee has a lot of inflation and it devalues, right? And so if you store your money in rupees and just hold it, every month or every year, you have less purchasing power with that.
Yes.
And so what I found in Bitcoin is it's the opposite. Everything gets cheaper in Bitcoin terms over time because Bitcoin becomes more and more valuable relative to government issued currencies. So that's why I put all my savings into it. I did that a couple of years ago. It's been a fantastic blessing to me. It allowed me to retire from a regular job and now focus on being an entrepreneur full time. But from the passive. So to me, it's not work anymore. People are like, well, you still go to meetings and you still do things. I'm like, yeah, that's a hobby. I enjoy it. It's fun. And it's a way to earn additional income and create more savings. But then I can use that to bless other people and do things, right? Um, but it's more just for fun. It's not because I have to work anymore. And so I hope that anybody listening would study Bitcoin, do some research. Don't get distracted by all the other coins out there like Ethereum and everything else, because Bitcoin really is the only true sound money that was created. Those are all spin-offs, and they violate certain of the things that make it the best money. But I think it can bless anybody at any level. And maybe the other thing, this is a little bit of a long answer, but the other thing that really impressed me about Bitcoin is I worry a lot about poverty in the world and inequity that exists. And it seems like the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. and not just in the US. I mean, in the US it's happening, but it's in every country I travel to. It seems like there's just a larger and larger gap, and a lot of that is caused by the money that we have because it's being printed freely by the government, and those at the top who make a lot are close to the money printer, so they get all the money before the inflation, and they can buy a lot. And then the poor people who are barely getting by, they're still getting their 1,000 rupees, and they just can't buy the same thing with it as they could last month or last year. And so they're getting squeezed. And whether it's in Pakistan or the US or anywhere, I just see this problem where the money that we have is causing this gap. When you are on Bitcoin, we're all the same, right? Some of us may have more than another person, but we're all getting richer because we're holding our Bitcoin, and richer in the sense our purchasing power is increasing over time. And so literally anybody at any economic level, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. Bitcoin divides into 100 million pieces per Bitcoin. So you can buy,
Wow.
it's called a Satoshi. You can buy one or two Satoshis, and that's a value, and it continues to have value. So anybody can participate at any level. It is permissionless. You don't have to get permission from anybody to own Bitcoin or use it. It's there for all of us to be blessed from and benefit from. So that's why I'm a maximalist, because I really, once I understood what it was and what it could do for the world, and I could talk for hours about it, but once I knew that, I was just very passionate about it.
That's very good to know, Rorik. So we see some governments are in an acceptance nature towards Bitcoin, but some are in resistance. So what do you think? Why some governments have accepted that, and why some are resisting on it?
Yeah. Well, I think governments resist it in general because they can't control it. And by nature, governments want to control, sometimes for bad reasons, but generally just because they want to keep law and order, right? Sometimes it's for power and other reasons, but I think that's why most governments initially kind of reject the idea, because Bitcoin is independent of any country, any government. It just is. It's software that just runs and keeps track of a ledger of this Bitcoin. And so I think that you're seeing nations now, to varying degrees, support Bitcoin because they realize it's now worth $2 trillion in total and growing rapidly. It's likely to reach, $4 to $5 trillion in value within the next year, as more and more people buy into it and its value goes up. And so I think governments are realizing maybe they can't fight it, so they need to join it and see if they can also benefit from it, and perhaps regulate it in some ways. You can't destroy it, but they can put some regulation on it. They can tax it. They can do some things that they find beneficial. And I think, being American and in the US, of course, Bitcoin was a big topic in our recent election in November. And, President Trump, elect Trump, or I guess reelected Trump, he became very outspoken favorably about Bitcoin, which was different than he had in the past. And that's created kind of a groundswell of support for it within the US. And of course, the US, for better or for worse, is kind of a world leader. And so a lot of other countries have started to talk about getting a Bitcoin strategic reserve and using it as to shore up their assets and their balance sheet, and reduce their debt and things. So I think that we just see governments start from that place of, skepticism and avoidance to, we need to embrace this. There are a couple of countries that are very much into Bitcoin, where there's a place in Honduras where you can actually run your whole company and pay your taxes in Bitcoin. El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin in a large way. Other countries are doing a lot of Bitcoin mining and holding a lot of Bitcoin, including in the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, for example. So I think you're just seeing the adoption, and it's only 16 years old. It's still a baby, or maybe a teenager, but it's certainly not grown up yet, right?
Absolutely. So that means if I have 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees in my bank account, I can also invest in Bitcoin.
Yes. So first of all, I would say I like to say the word save in Bitcoin rather than invest,
Okay.
because when you say, and it's a subtle thing, but here's why, is because if you invest, you're looking to get a return on your investment, and your mind is still thinking in what we call fiat or that currency, whether it's dollars or rupees or whatever, right? And when you save, it's saying, no, I'm saving my time and energy. Those, say, 20,000 rupees you have represent time and energy that you've spent that have been converted into rupees. And so you're going to save that in Bitcoin to preserve the value of that and maybe even increase that value. It's a subtle thing because it's like an investment. But once you own the Bitcoin, think of the Bitcoin and what it can purchase or what it can provide to you, rather than, oh, well, I'm going to convert it back to rupees and now I'll have 30,000 rupees. Because if you're just doing that, that's like buying a stock. It's almost like gambling, right? But if you think of it as savings, then it's a different framing in your mind for what Bitcoin really is. So to answer your question specifically, though, and sorry to nitpick on investing versus saving, but I
No,
think it's an
no, not a
important
problem.
mindset. And we're here to talk
Absolutely.
about minds, right? Empowering minds.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, you can. There are a couple of exchanges that will allow you to connect and pay with rupees, and then they'll convert that into Bitcoin, and they'll hold the Bitcoin for you in custody. But one of the really cool things about Bitcoin is you can take it into your own custody. So it's not with any bank. You control the keys and the coins. It's like you're your own bank when you hold that Bitcoin. And that's probably a larger conversation than we have time for today. But the ability to custody your own Bitcoin and be your own sovereign bank is really cool. And you don't have to trust anybody else. Basically, trust yourself.
Absolutely. Hearing this really gives me a cool feeling that I own a bank in my.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a really neat thing.
Great.
It's a big responsibility too, of course, because now if I mess it up, I lose my money, right? But I also, I mean, banks fail and things happen too. And so, there's a balance between trusting others or trusting yourself. I have a lot of confidence in myself, and I've done the study and research to make sure that I can hold that in a secure way.
So, what do you think the most common mistake you think people do in spending or saving in bitcoins?
Well, I referred to a little bit of it when I talked about investing, where they want to try to buy low and sell high because they see it as just a way to make some quick dollars or some quick rupees, right? And um, the best way to buy Bitcoin is to buy a little bit every week. And we call that dollar cost averaging, using a US term. But it basically means you don't worry about the value or the cost, but every week you buy 1,000 rupees worth or 2,000, whatever you can afford. And you just stack this continuously. And what happens is it goes up and down. Sometimes you're buying it low, sometimes high, but your average comes out low enough that over time you're creating more and more value. And then, you know, we say in Bitcoin, never sell your Bitcoin. And that's true at the beginning because you're just saving into it. But the whole purpose of somebody saving their money is to spend it on something later, whether that's retirement, a house, a car, education, whatever they're deferring their spending till later. That's why they're saving. So personally, I believe you should spend your Bitcoin when you would spend your savings for under the same criteria, and that's okay. But you don't spend your Bitcoin in the sense of, oh, look, it's worth a lot of rupees now, so I'm going to sell it to get rupees, because rupees aren't as strong and as good as Bitcoin. So just keep it in Bitcoin until you really need to spend it on something that is worth it to you to spend on, that you would spend your savings on. So that's the mistake people make, is they tend to just buy and sell and buy low and sell high. And Bitcoin really has large jumps in value about 10 days a year, and they're very unpredictable when they happen. And so if you're trying to time the market, you're going to miss it. So that's why you just kind of dollar cost average in and just keep saving, just like you would save, maybe try to save 10% of your income to be, frugal and fiscally responsible. We'll just take that 10% or 5% or 2%, whatever you can afford, and just keep buying a little bit of Bitcoin. And most of the exchanges will automatically do that for you, where they'll just debit your account every week or every month, whatever frequency you set up in the amount, and they'll just keep adding to your Bitcoin stack of savings. It's almost like an automatic savings account.
Sounds fascinating, Rory.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for shedding so much light on this. So, with your permission, I would love to go on another aspect which I would love to talk about traveling. So, you are a traveler, traveling enthusiast. So, I would love to know why do you find it fascinating, and what does, according to you, what does traveling teach us, and how does it help one becoming a better person?
Um, so I think the thing that traveling can do the most is expose you to the humanity that exists around the world. And even though in so many countries we have different cultures and languages, and we eat different kinds of foods, and we just have different customs, at the base of all that is a common humanity of a brother and sisterhood. And so I enjoy, like, I love when I'm traveling to watch people, watch families, especially families, because I think when you see a mom and a dad and some kids in any culture, there's a very similar dynamic that exists in that family, even though culturally, the way they dress, the language they speak, the way they present themselves might be different. Those feelings, those bonds of humanness between mother and father and children, and just people in general, I think you see that all over. And so the world becomes a bit much smaller place to me. You know, yet it still takes 24 hours to fly from the US to Pakistan, right? And usually there's one or two stops, but it's still an amazing thought that as big as the world is, I can be across the world in such a short amount of time. And while it's a completely different world, just visually what you see and hear, it's still just really, it's people. And it's people who have feelings, people who are going through their life, and they're having happy times and sad times and challenges and successes. And that's the common thing that brings us together. I'm a very religious person, and we won't talk about religion, but I just, there's a spiritual component to that feeling of going everywhere in the world and meeting God's children everywhere, right? And so that, I think that's the fundamental thing I enjoy with the travel. Now the other thing is, I don't like sitting in the same place every day. I've never been one to like want to just go to an office and sit in that same office. So getting on a plane or a ship or whatever, going somewhere, seeing some different things, meeting with different people, I just find a lot of joy in that. The other thing I found this year that I've really enjoyed is trying to cruise, you know, ship cruises. And um, that's something I discovered. I did my first one, really. I did three this summer, actually, between some with my daughters and my brothers and my parents. It just kind of worked out all of a sudden to have three different cruises, and I that's something I really enjoyed, and so I want to do more of that. I think one thing I have a goal for this year is to do a transatlantic cruise. I've always thought about the immigrants who came to America, you know, from Europe or from, you know, Russia or wherever. My ancestors were Russian and Eastern European, and so they immigrated to the U.S. in the early 1900s, and they came on ships. And I just have thought that would be cool to cross the Atlantic on a ship. So today it's much more comfortable than it was back then and faster. But
Absolutely.
anyway,
And more luxurious too.
yes, very luxurious with good food and everything else.
Absolutely.
And the ships actually don't make you seasick because they stabilize them, so you don't even get seasick.
That's wonderful. Looking forward to your trip, Rorik, while you are sharing the pictures of that with me.
Of course, I will.
Great. So, Rorik, a quick question that you are in the arena for a long time now. So, what, according to you, in the current ever so evolving era, technology wise or human behavior wise, so what are three most important innovations would be a talk of the history for us, according to you? happened recently, very recently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the obvious one that comes to mind first is the internet. That changed everything. Um, and we take it so much for granted now. It's amazing, when we don't have internet service for a minute, how frustrating that can be, right? It's like everything, we
Yeah,
can't communicate, we can't find the map, right? We can't look up our bank account, we can't do anything without the internet.
absolutely.
And it really changed everything. And in my lifetime, I mean, I've seen the entire conversion. Like when I was in the university, was when the first PCs came out, the ones that used the floppy disk that you had to put, the flop. There was only one drive. You had to put the application in, load it, then take it out, put your saving disk in to save. Then they came out with two drives, and that was really cool because you could have the application in one and the data in the other. And we thought that was cool. So I've been at this a long time. But when the internet came, that really just changed everything. And so that, I think, I mean, that made possible even things like Bitcoin. You couldn't do Bitcoin without the internet and without the computer. So the computer was important, but I think the internet was even more important than the computer. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say, is AI. Um, and I know you've talked about AI on the show before, and I think that there can't be enough said about the importance of AI. Um, I started to get into it last year deeply. I now use it for everything. Um, I use it actually a lot as an entrepreneur. Oftentimes, when I have an idea, I will immediately start asking prompts to AI. My favorite one to use is Perplexity. Not to promote them, but I've just found that it's really good because it provides all the references and footnotes, and it
It
allows me to
is.
go further in research, right? But I just think it's changed everything. And anywhere that, there's so many, I mean, it just literally touches everything. You use it in every discipline, everywhere. And it's just really amazed me. And I think we're just barely getting started on that, what it can do. And I think, like the internet, it will completely revolutionize the world, to be able to communicate and use machines to help us learn things and figure things out faster than we could do it ourselves. It still needs the
Absolutely.
human. We have to ask the right question. And if you've used AI and you ask the wrong question, you will get bad answers. But you can interact with it and rephrase the question or guide it. And I found that it's a skill. It's a skill you have to learn, right? How to do
Absolutely.
that. And then the
Yeah.
third thing I would say, and I won't belabor it, but I would say Bitcoin has changed everything. And we're going to see in the next few decades a lot of benefits from Bitcoin as it helps fix problems that exist in the world that are caused by the money system that we have and the way the central banks work. The other thing is if you think about the internet and AI, the AI particularly needs the ability to make payments. The AI agents, as they start to interact with each other, will need to make payments to each other for certain things. And Bitcoin is the perfect form of money to do that because it's digitally native, it's secure, it's controlled. And I mean, I could go on and on about that, but I think we're going to see a sort of a conversion of the internet, AI, and Bitcoin. And those three things, that's why I'm glad you asked for three and not four or two. But I think we'll see those three things really coalesce together into a very powerful change in the entire world. And it'll actually make the world even smaller. That's the other thing I would tell you. The internet has made the world smaller. I remember the first time I went to Japan and they had Windows there. And I was working for Apple at the time. And so I wasn't using Windows, but I went to places where I saw it. And then I plugged my laptop in. It was the first laptop I ever had. I plugged it into the network in Japan, and I could see my email from the US, which today we just take that for granted. It's on our phone, right? But that blew my mind that I could be on the other side of the world and have the same experience that I had at home in the US, and that my colleagues also were having the same experience. And they were being empowered with that technology. Um, And so the internet, I mean, everywhere I go in the world now, I mean, I'm on the internet. I just got to the hotel. What's the first thing you do? You log into the Wi-Fi, right?
Absolutely.
Because I got to be connected. And so I just think that that coalescence or that convergence of these three things together is going to change the world, and it's going to make the world a smaller and more connected place. Um,
Absolutely. Talking about AI, so Rehan School is first school based on AI, and
mhm.
Rehan School's curriculum is developed post internet developed era. So Rehan Bhai has worked so hard and developed a curriculum which is the post internet era, after the internet
Yeah.
has developed and reached everyone. So Rehan Bhai felt that need to change the curriculum and give education to the students, which they really need in their future, not just old books and the regular study. So I think
I think that's so, there's so much foresight in that. And I agree. Um, I admire what the school's doing because it's, some people would look at it and say, well, they're not learning the ABCs in the same way, right? They're not memorizing things. Well, you don't need to memorize. You just need to know how to interact with AI,
absolutely,
and you can get answers to and learn anything, right?
absolutely,
So I think it's a very smart thing that you guys are doing. Um, if anybody's interested in advice, I would add Bitcoin into the curriculum to at least learn about it, because it opens up the whole topic of economics, and how does the economic system of the world work. And AI can teach you a lot about that as well. But you need money to transact. The money is, if we didn't have money, we'd be in a barter system, right?
yeah,
And money's that intermediate exchange that allows us to have something common between us. But when money's broken, then it kind of messes up the whole system. And so again, that convergence of the internet, AI, and Bitcoin, I think your school is ahead of the game on that. I wish I had children that could go to that school.
we are online academy also. But if you want someone to join from US, they are welcome.
So they are. Well, that I may do that. I may give that as a gift or something to some of my older grandchildren. I have some that are 13 and 16 that would do that. The next group is about 8, is the oldest, so she's a little bit young, but the older ones would definitely benefit from that. So I will
Great.
check that out.
And as you spend time in Karachi, so we have two physical campuses also. I
Mhm.
invite you to go and have a visit, any of them, and you'll find some fascinating children there, and you'll have a wonderful experience.
I thank you for the invitation. I will take you up on that for sure.
That would be great. So, Rorik,
Yeah.
moving towards the conclusion, I would love to hear one best advice you have ever received in your life and one worst advice you have ever received in your
The
life.
best and the worst advice I've ever received.
Yeah,
Um, all right, let's start with the worst so that I can end on the positive note with the
absolutely.
best.
Absolutely.
Boy, I haven't had anybody ask me that question for a while, so I have to think for a second. Um, the worst advice I ever received, that at least comes to mind right now, and it's top of mind, is my dad was a dentist, and my mom kept the books for him. So it was a very small dental practice, not very many employees, but they never liked having employees in their business because the employees always cause problems. And so they always told me growing up, don't ever hire people because it just makes headaches and problems. And one of the things I've learned is that people are the solution to most problems. Yes, people do bring their own problems and challenges, and they're humans, and they make mistakes, and so the idea of, well, you can't trust anybody else to do it but yourself, I don't think is good advice. I think we trust a lot of people. I flew over to Dubai today, and I had to trust pilots I didn't ever even see. They were in the cockpit. I don't know. They did a good job. I got here. But we rely, you can't build things, you can't create software, you can't solve problems, you can't be an entrepreneur without people. And so I talked earlier about networking, right? And just meeting people and learning who does what and what are their skills. So I think that was, it is bad advice, but I think it reflected where my parents were and their life experience, and their frustrations with the things they were dealing with. But I found, for me anyway, if I followed that advice, I wouldn't have had very much success. Um, so the best advice I ever received. Um, Boy, there's so many good things out there. Um, I will tell you that I used to be, um, I used to be kind of a stern, impatient person and very judgmental of people. And I once had a good counselor tell me that I needed to love not just my family, but I needed to love the people I work with or that work for me. And I need to be more kind and treat them more generously and more patiently. And and I first learned that with my family and I became less judgmental and more patient. And I fought with this counselor about the idea of treating my employees the same way, because I just thought, you have to be stern, you have to do this. And that advice that she gave me, I even though I argued with her at first, I knew in my heart it was the truth, right? And I'm very focused on true principles. And so I made the change and adapted that. And this was about 10 years ago. And it made all the difference in the relationships with my team members. And they became more real people to me and not just human robots to get work done. So I guess the theme of that is kind of, maybe the best and the worst kind of go together, in the sense that, the bad advice was don't work with people, and the good advice was work with people and really love them, treat them, and treat them with the kindness and humanity and patience that we all deserve. So that's my
Wonderful,
thoughts.
Rory. Wonderful advices you have given. It's all because I want my audience and me myself to learn from you and your experiences. So
Thank
the
you.
good and the bad advices. So I think me and my audience have caught that. So definitely will apply on our lives too. So thank you, Rorik. Thank you so much for your precious time. I think we have been here for more than an hour now. So
Oh wow, it went
I really
fast.
enjoyed your company, and I hope you had the same experience with.
I did. It was an awesome opportunity to talk to you. Thank you, and I thank your audience for listening to us.
Thank you so much, Rorik. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Roark Janis from Dubai right now. He's in Dubai. He's an entrepreneur, Bitcoin Maximalist. I hope you enjoyed this session. I really did that, and I hope you did that too. So, you were watching me on my Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, Rahmat Empowerment Wala. Do like and comment. I'll see you next time. Till then, keep doing amazing things. Good night, good evening, wherever you are. I'll see you next time. Bye bye from now.